up, guys, and welcome back to the Tim Sports Talk. And today we have Ryan. I forgot to ask how you say this. Is it Dyrud?
Well done. Yeah, first try.
Nice. Sweet. We have Ryan Dyrud from the LFB Network on YouTube. You can find him there. Also on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB, excuse me. And how you doing today?
I'm good, brother. Doing great. Happy Friday. You know, football is back. We had college now a couple weeks. NFL kicked off last night. And yeah, I'm excited to jump on with you and talk some Chargers Washington.
Absolutely. We're going to have a bunch of fun. First, I just had a couple of things that kind of just you personally here. First off, congrats on an early 1K. I know you're going to get it this season. You guys are putting a bunch of content out. You're at 863, I think I just saw. So
yeah.
Early congrats on that. That'll be fun.
Appreciate it.
It was exciting when I first got my 1K. So hopefully you guys get it sooner rather than later. And then, so how and when did you become an LA Chargers fan?
Oh, okay. This is a good question because it's always an interesting one. So I'm not actually an LA Chargers fan. I'm actually from Denver. I'm a Broncos fan.
Oh, okay.
But I moved to LA about 13, 14 years ago. I'll give you the short end of the story. But I moved to LA. I worked in, restaurants, went to college at Long Beach State, graduated from there, and I was doing some writing for, SB Nation, fan side, kind of how everyone does it. Started off as a free writer. I was like, you know what, I'm writing for free anyway. Why don't I start my own thing? Started my own blog. We did all NFL, and then over the years, I lived and learned like what worked, what didn't. And over the years, I started realizing, okay, here I'm in LA. The Rams just moved back to LA. The Chargers then a year later moved to LA. We have I don't want to discredit any of our beat writers out here, but we have really poor coverage in Los Angeles with our football teams, including the Trojans and Bruins. So I was like, I'm just going to start the LA Football Network, where we are dedicated 24/7 to Los Angeles football. So to answer your question, over that time, since now I've covered the Chargers for 3 years, I have actually, it's weird to say being a Broncos fan, but I've actually come to root for the Chargers when they're not playing the Broncos. And I meet a lot of the players, I meet the coaches. And so I really do enjoy covering this team, and I'm really excited about them this season. But long and short, I'm not truly a fan, but I do root for them now that I've been covering them for multiple years.
Fair enough. So, yeah, one of my chatters asked last time, so it's not because you like to wear powder blue shirts. That's not the reason you became a fan. Okay.
They do have the best uniforms in football, though. I will say that. I do think that.
It is a pretty blue when those baby blues come out, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. And then, so you guess you kind of already said this. So when and why did you start your channel? You talked about because nobody else was doing it in LA. So fair enough. All right, cool. And then Yuki is a very mean person and asked, how does it feel to have even less fans in a new home?
The old false narrative, but hey, it's got to be.
Is it actually full packed stadiums?
Oh, well, it'll be
games?
full. It will. Okay, here's the thing. I'll try to be brief on it. It will be full every week, as the dig was. I mean, it's hard not to be full when or 27,000. But the thing saying there was no fans there was always false, because they actually, if you look at the percentage of like ticket sales, they were like 115% off. They had the most small stadium. But then there's the whole like, okay, more opposing fans as opposed to home fans. And, we can go way down this path and talk about ticket prices and people traveling from out of state. But the way the NFL is nowadays, and people will just disagree with me because that's the way it is. But the NFL nowadays, it's a traveling league. It's not like it was 15 years ago where you had the Steelers, Cowboys, and Niners travel. Everyone else stayed put. Everyone travels now. Like everyone, when the schedule comes out, no matter what team you cover, all 32 teams, you pick 2 games that you maybe want to travel to. LA is always that destination. Now Vegas will be too. I guarantee you the Raiders are going to have half opposing fans at every one of their home games. That's just the way it is. So it's not that the Chargers have no fans. It's that when you buy season tickets for your $50 a seat and you can sell it for $450, usually you're going to do that because that pays for your entire season ticket package. So the way it is. So anyway,
fair enough. I mean,
no hate to that guy, but the Chargers do have fans.
Yeah, Washington, it's a very transient city. Obviously in D.C., people come from all over, government jobs and stuff. So our stadium is a lot of times 60% opposing team fans. It's just absolutely stupid. Even like Jaguars fans come out of nowhere. Like, like how there's more Jaguar fans here than there is in Jacksonville. I feel.
It's the way it is. But for some reason, only the Chargers get hate for it. But last year, Atlanta, there was mini games. There were like 70% opposing fans in Atlanta games. So
fair enough. All right, cool. Well, let's hop into this Chargers offseason a little bit since we're going into week 1. First off, are you happy with the coaching change with Brandon Staley instead? I personally, out from the outside looking in, kind of liked Anthony Lynn, but are you pleased? Do you think that Anthony Lynn should have been fired, and are you pleased with the new coach?
So, 2-part question kind of. I was one of the few people that Okay, let me say it this way. I was a Lynn supporter. I thought basically if you were here in LA and with the Chargers fan base, it was like 99% wanted him out. Like, get rid of this guy, move on. Maybe 100%. Like me and my co-host Frosty Rucker were one of the few who were like, he's not as bad as people are making it seem when you really break it down. But it had gotten to a point where it was time to just move on. It was better for both. So we totally agree, or I totally thought by the end of the season, you know what? It's just time to move on. Ecstatic with the Brandon Staley hire.
Awesome.
I cover the Rams also, so I knew Brandon Staley well. I'm a Bronco fan, like I said. He came from Denver. They went to the Rams, and now to the Chargers. So I kind of knew his arc and his growth over the last 3-4 years. And he's a special dude, special coach, the way he communicates. If you listen to one press conference, so any of you Washington fans out there, if you go on Chargers.com and you want to just hear this guy, listen to one press conference and you get fired up, even if it's not your team. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. Now we got to see it translate on the field, but we've seen what his defenses have done in the short time he's been in this league. And so he was the guy I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but back in before Lynn was even fired, everyone pretty much knew it was a foregone conclusion they were going to move on. And as I was covering the Rams, I was like, Rams fans, just prepare. We're going to lose Staley. Like, he's going to get hired by someone. And then I was like, it should be the Chargers. Doesn't have to leave town. He can stay. He just moved here.
Makes sense.
I was on the Staley train for the Chargers. No one was really on it. Everyone wanted Brian Dable. And then they announced the hire, and the rest is history. So, yeah.
Perfect. Great news. Yeah, I didn't know much about Brandon Staley, full disclosure, going into this for sure. I had no clue. I just personally liked Anthony Lynn, but it sounds like they made a great move. Obviously, the Rams' defense was phenomenal the year he was coaching it, and then you all Broncos have always had a solid defense. I know he was a linebackers coach, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
he was with Vic Fangio in Chicago and then followed him to Denver, so he's a Fangio disciple. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Which I'm not very happy with him. I'm sure if you're a Broncos fan of benching Drew Lock, I don't know about you. I'm a big Drew Lock fan.
I am too.
So not happy about that one. But anyway, we're talking Chargers. So just give me your overview. I have a couple of points I want to touch on if you don't, but give me your overview of the offseason. How'd it go for you guys? The draft, the preseason, everything. How'd it go for you guys?
I think they did a really good job. The Chargers typically in off seasons are pretty quiet. They're usually sellers, not buyers when it comes to free agency. They'll make a couple moves here and there, but nothing really splashy. Like they'll sign a mid-tier free agent for probably a little bit overpriced, and that's like their moves. But this year, going all in on Corey Linsley was a slam dunk when he, the best center in football, in my opinion, or at least being an all-pro that tells you he's the best center in football.
Yep.
And they get him. They get two quality veteran guys in Matt Filer and Ode Ibushi. Because if you look at last year with the Chargers, the biggest issue for them, besides blowing leads late, which they alleviated by firing Gus Bradley and the coaching staff, was the offensive line, who was not only the worst in the NFL last year, it was like historically bad. So they tore it down to the studs, only kept Brian Bulaga out of the entire starting rotation, signed 3 new guys, and then drafted Rasan Slater in the first round that's a slam dunk home run that was not shouldn't have happened. There's no way Rasan Slater should have fell to them at 13. But he did, and they ran that car to the podium as quick as possible. So, but yeah, overall, I thought the offseason, they retained Mike Davis, who is one of their own. That was really instrumental in this defense, and Brandon Staley, who's great with the secondary overall with his schematically, and he really wanted a guy like Mike Davis because of his size, his physicality. So they were able to retain him. And so overall, I think they had a really solid offseason, and different in a sense where they were really active and proactive as opposed to just kind of sitting back and taking some guys that didn't get signed late. They were kind of on it right from the get-go. So, and then I didn't even mention getting Asante Samuel Jr. in the second round, getting Josh Palmer in the third round. So, and we saw these guys in training camp just light it up. So it was a good one, I think, for Tom Telesco and company in Los Angeles.
Fair enough. I loved Rasan Slater as well, coming out of Northwestern. I thought he was a beast. My one concern, and do they have any concerns, is that size. He's only about 6'3", barely 6'4", maybe, if depending on how you're listed. Not the longest arms in the world, but technically sound. When you watch the film on him, super technical in how he does his drop step and everything. But is there any concern on the size there?
I don't think there is. We talked to Frank Smith, who's the offensive line coach, and nowadays it went through a period, I feel like, in the NFL when there was the prototypical size for a tackle, and that's like what you had to be, right? You had to be that. And now we've gotten to a point finally, and it helps too when you have a great quarterback like Justin Herbert, but they got where they want to be more technically sound, more, better above the shoulders, and able to do other things as opposed to just being, 6'7", 340 pounds. And so, yeah, that was a concern, I think, for some teams, but the Chargers, absolutely not. And he's honestly in one-on-ones against Joey Bosa, who's one of the best in the game. And I know he'll face, Chase Young with you guys, who they face in college. Everyone always goes back to that tape. And I think I'll be honest, we'll get to it, I'm sure, but I think Chase Young will probably win a few. I mean, this is Rasan Slater's first start in the NFL. I think Chase Young is already a premier pass rusher, so he'll probably win a few.
Yeah, one year in the NFL will do a lot. Yeah, 1 year in the NFL will do a lot for sure. And you mentioned the beef-up secondary a little bit with Asante Samuel, but also Chris Harris Jr. You're getting Derwin James back off of injury. I don't know how he's looked, but how's that secondary looking for you guys? I know that you guys, as you said, blown some leads last year. How do you guys feel about that secondary?
Yeah, excited. So the way, not to bore everyone with X's and O's, I nerd out with X's and O's, but the way Brandon Staley uses his secondary is so fun to watch because they don't have corners and safeties, essentially. It's basically defensive backs. So they have 10 defensive backs on the roster. You'll see Chris Harris sometimes lined up as a safety. You'll see him in the nickel. Mike Davis is their main outside guy. Like I mentioned, Asante Samuel Jr. did win the CB2 job if you're on the depth chart paper. Again, I don't think that means a lot in this defense. But then Derwin, who's looked fully healthy, is 100%, has looked great in training camp. They're pumped about. And then Nasir Adderley, who's a guy that got out of Delaware a few years ago that they were really excited about, but we just haven't really seen mature. And part of that is because they've played him and Derwin James since he was drafted have played like 2 games together. Like the part of drafting Nasir Adderley was to complement Derwin James, and they just haven't been able to do it because one of them is always hurt. Yeah. So hopefully this year going in, them being able to play together, that's a very formidable back end you combine within Chris Harris Jr., like you said, and Mike Davis and Asante Samuel Jr. So they're an exciting group, and they've got, other guys they'll sprinkle in because they'll do a lot of 6 defensive back sets, depending who's going to be money or dime. So, yeah, they're excited about it.
Fair enough. All right, sweet. Real quick then, just you could be quick. The best move and worst move of the offseason for you. What's your one best move and your one worst move?
Oh, well, the best move's got to be Corey Linsley. Okay. Great signing. They obviously paid a steep price, but you can't overpay for a quarterback of the offensive line. And his relationship with Justin Herbert is so important. So, and they've already been raving about him in camp and what he means to this team. Worst move. I mean, I don't want to sound homerish, but I feel like they didn't make a ton of really bad moves.
Good.
You could point to not re-signing Hunter Henry, but I like the 1-year deal they got to Jared Cook, who has formality with Joe Lombardi, their new offensive coordinator. So if I had to pick one, maybe it's letting a guy like Hunter Henry walk, but I don't think they were ever going to pay him $13 million like New England did.
Fair enough. All right, sweet. All right, so the last thing about this offseason, though, is you guys decided not to play a lot of your starters this preseason. Do you think that's going to come out a little sluggish for you guys week 1, or do you think you guys will be ready to roll and nice and healthy and ready to roll?
It's a great question, but Brandon Staley obviously being a year with Sean McVay and the Rams, and if you follow the Rams well, they never play any starters. They literally did not play a single starter this preseason. They didn't last preseason, although there was none last year, but in 2019, they just don't. So Staley was there last year, saw how the Rams have been a historically healthy team. The Chargers historically have not been a healthy team. So I think he took that and decided to, adapt that and roll with it. And they started a couple rookies, like Asante played a lot, who's going to be a starter. Josh Palmer played a lot, but none of the stars played. I'm not concerned about it because of how they've run practices and how intense it's been. They've had joint practices as well, where those guys have gotten reps. So I'm sure you'll see some, maybe some rust there in the first quarter, but I would think they'd shake it off. The only big concern for me at all, Tim, is going to be the offensive line, because every one of them is new playing together. Not one single guy has played together out of the 5. So I've told my listeners a lot
against this defensive line,
against
also
the best defensive front probably in football. I've told my listeners, do not expect this offensive line to be that much improved until probably week 5. Like, there's going to be growing pains for sure, but a preseason wasn't going to fix that, because even still they'd play like one drive. So this is going to be a tough test for them, Tim. And yeah, playing the best defensive front in football is a tall order, but hey, we'll see what they're like right out of the gates, which will be helpful.
Sweet. Awesome. And that leads us right into, I was curious, what is your outsider's perspective on my team, the Washington football team? How do you feel about us, either historically, currently, and how do you feel, what does the outsiders look for you?
I love Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron. Just a great person. I mean, I think he's a great guy, and obviously he's had a lot of success with Carolina. I have you guys picked to win the NFC East. With the defense you have, like I said, I truly believe, if not the best, like no doubt top 3 defensive front, or even front 7. Just it's amazing how you have a Pro Bowler at every position on the defensive line and even in the linebacking core. And then offensively, obviously is it Fitzmagic? Is it Fitztragic? You don't really know what you're going to get with him week in and week out, but I would say it's an upgrade to start the season. We'll see what it's like in week 9, week 10. Because it seems like that seems to be his linear the last 5 years. He starts the season and doesn't finish it. So I don't know how you guys will be in the future, because obviously and I'm sure you talk about it all the time, the question mark of who's your future QB. But I like, Scary Terry. It's a bummer about Curtis Samuel for you guys going on IR, because obviously I think he's going to be a huge asset to your team. But Antonio Gibson gives you, tremendous upside out of the backfield. You always seem to have a fairly solid offensive line. So this is a tough matchup for the Chargers, a very tough week 1 matchup. And I think there's a lot of good things for your Washington team. It'll just be kind of what the quarterback play gives you down the stretch. But to start, I think you're going to be very good.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Good. Yeah, I think you did a pretty good synopsis of the team. I don't think you got too far off. The one thing is I don't have us winning the division because of Ryan Fitzpatrick. Never made the playoffs in his entire career.
Yeah.
I hope he does. I'm rooting for it, but I'm not under any illusions. I'm not somebody that's like, let's hop on the Fitzmagic train.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe Taylor Heineke finishes the year again and finds that magic he did last year. So
Taylor Heineke.
Heineke, thank you.
He's something. Yeah, he's something over there. Heineke, as Chase Young likes to say. No, it was fun. All right, cool. Well, let's hop into this thing. All right, give me a guy offensively and defensively that is going to surprise people this year and something that we need to watch for as Washington fans. And it could be a guy that people have heard of, but you think is going to take a giant leap, or it's somebody that nobody's ever heard of that you think is going to make some noise even week 1 against us.
So offensively, and it might not be week 1, but I think by mid-season, Josh Palmer, rookie receiver out of Tennessee, has had a phenomenal camp. He's literally like, if Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, both are starting wide receiver 1 and 2, had a baby, it would be Josh Palmer. Like, he's got the size of Mike Williams, the route running ability and hands of Keenan Allen. And I mean, that's high praise. I think Keenan Allen's a top 5 receiver.
Oh, huge.
But Josh Palmer, he looks the part. Like, the fact that he went in the 3rd round was basically due to the horrible quarterback play they had at Tennessee, because the intangibles he has is a much better receiver arc than that 3rd round selection. So he's a guy that already is getting high praise from Justin Herbert and the receiving room. And he'll, I don't know if he's on paper wide receiver 3 on the depth chart, but again, I don't think
Guyton,
really,
I think
Guyton is, who's more of just a deep threat. Whereas Josh Palmer gives you every route on the tree. Defensively, there's 2 guys that I would kind of circle.
You can choose one. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. It's your show.
No, 2. 2's fine.
I'll be quick. Jerry Tillery, 1st round pick out of Notre Dame a few years ago, who just really hasn't quite reached that potential. Brandon Staley and this defensive line staff have, continually say this is a guy we're expecting to make that leap. I know fans have wanted to see it, but the coaching staff finally expects that, and he'll be back at his more true position as a 3-4 D end. Last year, they kind of moved him. They ran a more traditional 4-3 last year base, and they'd have him on the inside at D tackle. And then after some injuries, they actually moved him out as an edge guy, which is not really his forte. So this year, he'll be more of a true 3-4 D end when they're in base. But he has a size, speed, intangibles. It's just a matter of putting it all together. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about a guy that everyone knows, but Chris Harris Jr., who, when signed 2 years ago, was expected to be this great corner for this team after 10 years in Denver, and really had a down year last year, mixed 6 games with the injury. And he's actually, I know it's weird to call a 12-year veteran like your dark horse breakout candidate, but for this Chargers team, he's my breakout candidate, because I think he's going to have a Pro Bowl year. I think he's going to be extremely good in the Staley defense, knows it from his time in Denver. So I think he's a guy to watch for to get back to that 3 or 4 years ago dominance when he was a top 5 corner.
Gotcha. Chris, or Jared Sports Takes, he's my co-host. He asked about, or he says it's Kenneth Murray. I don't know anything about Kenneth Murray. What do you think about, is he a guy that could pop up out of nowhere?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and this isn't, I'm not saying this to sound disrespectful, but yeah, he wouldn't pop up after leading the team with like 110 tackles last year, but he is a guy that absolutely is someone to watch for. He's a true sideline linebacker coming out of Oklahoma, and they'll use him more in pass rush this year, which we didn't see last year, which I know he's excited about. But yeah, he's a guy that can drop back in coverage, sideline to sideline, pass rush. He's just a freak athlete. So yeah, that's a great call from our co-host because Kenneth Murray's he's going to have a big year. Going back to number 9. I love seeing these single-digit linebackers.
There you go. Yeah, that's kind of like our Cole Holcomb. A lot of people don't know a lot about Cole Holcomb, but yeah, he's a guy that had over 100 tackles last year combined. That is an absolute stud out of UNC. He had 100 tackles every year in 3 years in a row for UNC. 4'4" guy, white dude that can have that kind of speed. But anyway, yeah, he's a guy. He's a tackling machine and can do it all as a linebacker. So I guess that's kind of how old is Kenneth Murray? As I said, I don't remember Kenneth Murray.
This is his second year, so I'm assuming he's 23, 22.
Okay, so second. So okay, he was just a rookie last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
cool. All right, sweet. All right, so mine is on offense. You mentioned him earlier, but I think Terry McLaurin can be a top 5 receiver. I think Terry McLaurin, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, loves to feed his number one guy. If you go back and look, Stevie Johnson had over 1,000 yards 2 years in a row. Brandon Marshall had like 180 targets in a season or something like that. Just stupid. I think Terry McLaurin is going to just absolutely explode this year, and I can't believe he did not make the top 100. I think that's just unbelievable disrespectful when you put Cole Beasley on the list and not a guy like Terry McLaurin.
That list is a sham, by the way. So.
Yeah, 4 quarterbacks, and he ended up with over 1,000 yards, like 1,100 yards. Yeah. I know he only had like 4 or 5 touchdowns, but 4 different quarterbacks, one of them with one leg, and he ends up with 1,100 yards. Dude's an absolute stud. And then defensively is our 3rd-round pick. I know you picked your 3rd-round pick on offense. Benjamin St. Juice, the corner out of Minnesota, is having a phenomenal season, or offseason, I should say, camp. And he even had a play where he stood over Terry after breaking up a pass and made him look a little silly. But no, I think this guy, I know Chris, my co-host, likes to call him Richard Sherman 2.0. He's not the fastest guy. He's got great length, great quickness, and we're really high on him. So we're looking to, he actually might start on the outside for us over a Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller might be bumped into the slot, and William Jackson over on the other side. So those are my 2 guys coming in to this season.
I like it.
All right. What do you believe the scariest part of the Washington team is going into this game for y'all?
Well, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's got to be that front 4, that front, or even just the front 7. For this Chargers offense to really be successful, they want to be balanced in running the football, the play action, getting the ball out quick. I know there you go.
Saint Goat. Yeah. We like to call him over here. Saint Goat. Benjamin Saint Goat. But anyway, sorry, go on.
No, I like that. But yeah, in order to open up the deep ball for Justin Herbert, which he was so successful last year, they have to be efficient with, running the football and play action like that. And this, your guys' defensive front can just absolutely blow that up and not allow it to happen. So, and especially with this brand new offensive line. So that is absolutely what I'm looking at and what I'm concerned about, because if this game could get out of hand quick, if you guys are just manhandling our new offensive line and we're not able to get the ball out quick and Justin Herbert gets rattled or whatever, and this offensive scheme, which is brand new for everyone on this team, can never really get succinct, can never really get in a rhythm. And obviously that's what guys like, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, guys like that want to do. And that's their whole game plan. So I would expect a lot of 2 tight end sets for this Chargers team to start. They, like I said, they brought over Jared Cook, and then drafting Trey McKitty out of Georgia, who is a great inline blocker. They have Donald Parham, who's their tight end 2, but he's not a blocker by any means. He's a red zone threat. And then Steven Anderson. They kept 4 tight ends. So I would expect to see a lot of 2 tight end sets, or especially a guy like Joshua Kelly or Larry Roundtree in there to chip a guy at least to give Justin Herbert a little more time. But yeah, that's definitely what I'm circling is your guys' front and how they kind of dominate the trenches.
Absolutely. And I know you were talking about maybe top 3. I think we're number 1 on the defensive line. And it's not because we got lucky. We spent the capital. We have 4 first-round picks
like every year
on the defensive line. So it's not like a shock like Washington, they've got out of nowhere. No, we spent the capital, and that's why we have the number 1 defensive line. And also a guy like
you guys and the Niners every year taking a defensive lineman.
Exactly. But we still have ours young. I know Buckner's gone over there. And they still, of course, have the other Bosa, Nick Bosa, absolute monster. But anyway, and they're still a great defensive line as well. But I think we have the number 1 defensive line. Our linebacker's a little bit sketchy, but I agree. Our defensive line has to be. I agree. Mine for y'all is Joey Bosa. And obviously he's a stud. We know that. But we have a rookie right tackle that I think he has some potential, but we're starting him week 1. at the right tackle spot, and he's going against Joey Bosa in his first game ever. And granted, he has been going against Montez Sweat and Chase Young, which is awesome. I heard they were beating him up a little bit. But this really concerns me, especially with a guy with like Fitzpatrick that needs some time in the pocket. We don't want him making any rash decisions, which he's going to. But that scares me the most about your team by a mile because of our rookie right tackle.
I know this is your show, but let me ask you this.
Yeah, no, go for it. So you could ask me whatever you want.
Who do you think has how do I phrase this? The bigger chance to fail, I guess. Sam Cosmi against Joey Bosa or Rasan Slater against Chase Young? Both rookie tackles going against top 5 edge talent.
I have to go with Cosmi. He has the worst. Right? No, wait, sorry. I want to make sure I said that right. I think that he has the worst chances. I think Slater has the better chances. First of all, Slater's gone against him. Right? Chase Young, obviously a monster, but still only in year 2. What's Joey Bosa in year 5 or something like that? He's been in the league quite some time.
Yeah,
so he's got way more experience. And I liked Slater more than I liked Cosmi coming out in this draft. Clearly, that's why he was picked 13 and Cosmi picked 52. Or 51, whatever it was. So there's an obvious difference here. I think Cosmi is better when it comes to size. When it comes to Slater, he's 6'6". He's a little light. I think 310 or so. He's probably added some weight since draft. So he's a little bit more of a true size tackle than Slater. But I think Slater is just a more talented dude, and he's going against a guy that he's had experience with anyway. That's a heavy. My co-host likes you apparently. There you go. He's saying good things about you. Matty Ice returned. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. Well, what's up, T-Ho? What up, Hassan? What up, Yuki? What's up, everybody? Hope you guys having a good evening. All right, let's continue through this here. So we talked about what's the scariest part of our team. What's the biggest weakness of your team that you're afraid that we're going to exploit? What's the one position group or spot that you're worried about the most going into this game?
Well, okay. Let me give you another one because the obvious one is the offensive line, but I don't want to keep talking about the same thing. That's definitely the spot that I'm most watching, most. Which is
funny to me because I forgot, because when I wrote that question, I wasn't thinking. I thought your offensive line looked good, but I see now what your point is that because they're all new together, that's going to be the mesh point. So when I wrote that question, I didn't think that the offensive line would be actually a weakness at all on your team. I thought your offensive line looked solid, but okay. But all right, so another weakness then. What's the other spot then?
And it won't be a weakness for long, but I just think it's going to take a few weeks to get that continuity going. But because like I said, I love everything they did to rebuild it, but it's going to take time, and we're going against your defensive front. But another one I would say that is a concern, and we'll stick with the trenches, is how this defensive line goes against your running game because. They're returning essentially everyone. I know Joey Bosa is more of an edge, especially now that they're moving to a 3-4 base, which they don't run base package. They're not going to run base package more than like 15% of the time. So there's going to be a lot of different hybrid looks, but Bosa more of an edge. So your defensive front is more like Jerry Tillery, Justin Jones, Linval Joseph, and then you're going to have like Christian Covington rotating in and guys like that. So they've got some good meat, some good size there. There was issues last year against the run, giving up gash plays. They would address that throughout the game and get a little more sound. And then it seemed like then the secondary would fall apart later in the game. So it's like they would never like fully succinct as a defense. But to see how this unit responds to this new system, to this new scheme, and these new gap positionings that they're going to be doing, and to see how Jerry Tillery really takes off in his role. Like I said, I think he could be a breakout candidate and a guy that fans want to see be that true 28th overall pick, 6'6" freak athlete that he is on the defensive front. So as good as your defensive front is and sound they are, there's just so much unknown about this Chargers defensive front. And Linval Joseph is obviously the sound constant, just a mountain of a man. But outside of him, it's like, what are we going to see out of Justin Jones, out of Jerry Tillery, out of Christian Covington, out of these other guys? So that would be the one I would be kind of leery on a little bit because I feel really good about our secondary. I think it's more about this, and I feel really good about our linebackers. It's this defensive front. How are they going to respond, I think, in this new system?
Fair enough. All right, so my weakness, before I actually go into my weakness, I have to ask this. Is Austin Eckler going to play?
Yes.
What's the situation here? I know he's got a hammy hasn't practiced. Did he practice today? I know he didn't practice a couple days ago.
He practiced light today. He's going to play. I mean, they still are saying questionable, but he's going to play.
All right, good.
Yeah,
it's not like our Curtis Samuel where it's like, everybody's like, oh yeah, he's gonna play week 1. It's all good. And then all of a sudden, the week of week 1,
IR.
actually IR. Wait,
Yeah.
what? It was just a pulled groin. Like what? He heard it like 5 weeks ago. Like, come on, why aren't you back yet?
Yeah.
All right.
That
Fair
was
enough.
interesting. But yeah, Eckler should. I won't sit here and say with 100% certainty, but I would say with like 99.5% certainty he'll be a go.
All right, so then that leads me into our biggest weakness, and it was our biggest weakness outside of quarterback position. But you know what? I'm not going to call Ryan Fitzpatrick our biggest weakness yet. Let's see what he can do. He's looked better the last 3 years, so maybe he can just be more of a game manager.
At least he's entertaining. He's entertaining.
I joked with our fans for so long because we're so used to guys that have just like not really been interested to push the ball downfield. Kirk Cousins checked it down a lot. Obviously, Alex Smith was checked down, Charlie. Dwayne Haskins was just garbage. We've had so many players that have just – our fans have always been like, why can't we just push it downfield? Why don't we take chances downfield? This year, you're going to be like, why can't we just check it down?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we just take what the defense gives us? Like, that's what we're going to be saying now with Ryan Fitzpatrick because he's going to sling it.
Oh, yeah.
Even with the not the strongest arm, he's going to sling it everywhere. So I like to joke with our fans on that one because, it's going to be a complete 180 from what we're used to. But our linebacker spot is a problem, okay? And I know we drafted Jamin Davis round 1, but similar to your offensive line, I think he's going to need some time. And I don't think he's not playing instinctual yet in the preseason. He hasn't looked good. He hasn't looked like he's playing fast. He hasn't looked like he's playing ready to go. He's kind of like letting the game come to him. And so I think that's going to hurt. John Bostic can't cover a soul. So Austin Eckler, the PPR like machine that he is, I'm afraid is going to slice and dice our linebacking group. And that is my biggest fear going into this game is our linebacker spot, being able to shut down Austin Eckler. And that's why I was like, I don't wish injuries upon anybody, but if he wants to sit a week and rest that hammy, sit a week, please, because we could use it. That's for sure.
And just to comment on that, I don't know how many Washington fans know, but the Chargers' new offensive coordinator is Joe Lombardi, former quarterback coach for the Saints. So they're basically installing the Saints offense with some other wrinkles. So Austin Eckler essentially is going to be the role of Alvin Kamara. Like that is what they want him to be in Los Angeles. So if that's a concern for you, then you're going to see a lot of it, I
think. We don't need to see anything of Alvin Kamara. Yeah, we flashbacks to that couple years ago where we were up 15 with like 4 minutes to go, and Alvin Kamara scores 2 touchdowns in the 2-point conversion, and all of a sudden it's a tie game and we lose. Yep. It's all right.
Isn't being a fan fun?
Isn't it? Yeah, I was so mad that game. So mad. All right. So, what do you believe the game plan is offensively for you guys with what you know about both teams? How would you go about beating our defense?
Well, kind of like what I mentioned before, it's, you need to establish the run in some capacity against your guys' front four, but then a lot of it's going to be, efficiency. If you look at the Saints offense, which makes them so dynamic is their personnel groupings. I think I read somewhere that in one of their playoff games by the end of the first half, they hadn't used a single same personnel grouping on offense, which is insane to me. So we're going to see a lot of different rotations between receivers, running backs, tight ends, stuff like that. So keeping the defense honest and not being able to just like get in that rhythm of like, okay, I'm going against the guy every play. And in order to, the reason why they do that is because they want to be efficient. And then that eventually will allow them to open things up for a big play, a wow play, if you will, but efficiency. So a lot of times, Drew Brees can criticize, and part of that's just with his age, so his arms not as strong, but a lot of their passes are, short passes. He has like the lowest air yards, it seems like every season in the last 5 years, whereas Justin Herbert is the opposite with the arm talent. But they want to almost rein that back a little bit and say, okay, we want efficiency. We want to move the ball efficiently down the field, buy our time, and then eventually we can hit that big strike to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams for a 40-plus yard play, which they'll do, or Jalen Guyton, who's our burner. So, but to answer your guy, yeah, exactly. But to answer your question, I think it's going to be getting the run game at least going, or at least keeping the defense honest, and then just being very efficient with your, whether it's, little out routes, little, because the running backs can be very involved in the passing game. So getting them passes out of the backfield, but also running routes in the slot, and then just getting Keenan Allen a healthy dose and getting him warmed up early so that they can open things up later in the game.
Fair enough. Do you expect, I forgot to ask this one earlier, so I think this is a good time. Do you expect a bump for Justin Herbert, or do you think you may see a little bit of a sophomore slump? Do you think he's just going to continue to? He came out firing last year, looked like the guy we should have drafted at number 2 instead of Chase. Even though I love Chase Young, so I'm not mad. But obviously, Dwayne Haskins was not it, and quarterback's the most important position. And of course, we have all that depth at defensive line anyway. But anyway, he's looking like an absolute stud. Do you expect he's just going to continue to just take off, or do you think there may be a little bit of a sophomore slump here coming?
Yeah, it's funny that to go back at the same thing with the Broncos, who took Bradley Chubb instead of Josh Allen at the time, and now everyone's like, "Why did you take Josh Allen?" It's like, well, at the time it was the right pick. But anyway, we've talked about this a ton. This is a huge topic with Chargers podcasts or anything like that, or anyone that covers the Chargers. And the thing I always come back to is it's how do you define a sophomore slump? Because if it's a slight regression in statistics, but he's more efficient and the team is winning, you can't really call that a slump in my opinion. Because obviously he broke pretty much every single rookie record. It's going to be hard to top that. With the extra game, I'm sure he will. But when you look at just like averages, it'll be hard to top what he
extra
did
2
last
games
year.
Because he only played 15.
True, yeah, extra 2 games. So, but when you look at just averages across the board, it's going to be hard to top what he did. But that's also because he was asked to like bring this team back so many times. Whereas if they're doing things correctly in this new offense, he's not going to be asked to do as much. It's going to be more efficient. So I truly don't think he will have a sophomore slump. But that being said, I do think we may see a drop off in statistics, but I also would not be shocked at all if he like gets in that MVP race and just blows it out of the water because he has that much talent. But it's just a matter of I don't think he'll be asked to do that much.
Yeah, I loved him coming out of Oregon. Yeah, it was a great. You guys got very fortunate that Tua and I still like Joe Burrow more. We'll see how he does after the ACL, but I like Justin Herbert over Tua personally, and now that's obviously continued. But yeah, he's looking like an absolute stud.
Oh yeah, and last I won't bring up the Broncos again, I promise. But last thing, the year before, when Herbert originally was going to come out with that same class with Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and at the time Justin Herbert was talking about coming out that year. The Broncos and John Elway were like all in on taking Herbert. Like they were going to trade up to get him. That was like Elway's guy, was Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
and he decided to go back to college. So then the Broncos decided, okay, let's wait. Let's get Chubb. And now it's like, oh, man, because this kid's so good. He's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Even though I think freaking Drew Lock can be that guy. You brought up the Broncos. I
do too.
I think Drew Lock could be the next Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield. He was supposed to. This is going to be his year 3 where he took off. He got Cortland Sutton back. He got a better offensive line. He was about to it's frustrating. I made a video on my channel. I don't know if you saw it, but I was real heated about the benching of a Drew Lock.
Yeah, you don't got to preach to me. I'm a huge Lock guy. He was before he was even drafted by the Broncos, he was my guy that year. I mean, I know it was a very weak class, but I liked him much better than Dwayne Haskins, much better than what's his name? New York Giants quarterback.
Yeah,
and then
Daniel Jones.
Obviously, Kyler Murray was probably better, but that was a big.
Oh, I loved Murray. Yeah, Murray had to be number 1. Absolutely. Yeah, I bet a dude because I listened to Chris Cooley on he has a radio show where he does a bunch of film breakdowns. He's one of the best at that, and he talked about Drew Lock and how good he was. And so I looked at it, I was like, yeah, the dude has a freaking cannon.
Yeah.
And I bet a dude that we were going to take Drew Lock instead of Haskins at 15. And of course, I lost $20. But I was so mad. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
I know he's only played 18 games. I mean, the guy just needs some more time. But anyway.
Exactly.
I digress.
All right. So to our offense to beat your defense, all right, we need to get rid of the ball quickly. All right. We need to just quick game. Ryan Fitzpatrick cannot hold on to the ball forever, and I know there's going to be a time that he does, and it's either going to be a tipped pass or it's going to be a strip sack or something stupid's going to happen. But I got to see, I got to see that ball out of his hands. I can't see it too long, and I got to have Gibby running it all day long. I want 20, 25 carries for Antonio Gibson. I think this guy, he's 6 foot, like 6'1", 220. He's actually got a great size for it. He's got phenomenal speeds, 4.39 speed. I got to see Gibby get at least 20, 25 carries, and hopefully we run efficiently. But yeah, Joey Bosa cannot take off, and we got to chip Joey Bosa the whole game too. That's just something that has to happen. Because as I said, Sam Cosmi, I'd be shocked if he goes mano a mano with Joey Bosa the entire game and has any sort of success.
That'd be a bad offensive game plan if that's what they want.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's switch to defensively. All right. How are you guys gonna scheme up and beat our offense?
Well, I mean, it's force Fitzpatrick to be Fitzpatrick and not Fitzmagic. Force him to try to play hero ball which makes him fun to watch, but it doesn't always win you games. He's the guy that can win you games but can lose you games, as opposed to a game manager that is very more even keel. So it's, getting Joey Bosa going, but I think more importantly, it's going to be that second edge rusher, whether that's, Kyler Fackrell. They'll basically do a heavy rotation there on the as our, second edge guy. But how they get going and how they're able to utilize their speed rushes and pass rushes. And because I would assume if Washington has a good offensive game plan, they're not going to just leave Cosme on an island versus Joey Bosa. They're going to have extra help over there. So that means that's going to leave Fackrell and those other guys on an island to beat their man. So if they're able to do that to pressure Fitzpatrick, then I think that'll be a successful thing for this Chargers defense. And like I mentioned earlier, it's this defensive line and how they stop the run. Because I agree with you. I think Antonio Gibson could end up being a top 5 back this year, who I think came on late last year, looked very good, can do it both in the pass game and the run game. So it's going to be neutralizing him. And then, not to just name every star player, but obviously Terry McLaurin is an issue and a guy that they want to lock down. And whether it's, we'll see Derwin James play a lot of money. Like doesn't just play safety. So we'll see him in coverage, I'm sure, as well, mano a mano. So whatever Brandon Staley decides to do to shut down McLaurin and force Fitzpatrick to other options, that's what we'll see. And if you know anything about a Staley defense, I don't know if you watched any Rams games, but he's very good at adjustments. So if the Washington gets going early in the first quarter, expect it to change very quickly by at least by quarter 3. Perfect example for you. In week 3, I believe last year, Rams, Buffalo Bills. Bills went up like 28-7 in the first half. And then they didn't score again until their last drive in the fourth quarter. They ended up winning the game on a push-off, I'll say. But yeah, they didn't score again. The defense clamped down and made those adjustments. So that's just kind of the nuances of what this Staley defense does. So, that's kind of the long and short of what this defense needs to do, I think.
For sure. Jack Del Rio actually does the same. Especially late down the stretch last year, our second half defense was absolutely shut down. I mean, the Steelers only scored, I believe, 3 points, maybe 6, or like 2 field goals in the second half. Nobody was scoring in the second half against us last year. And I don't expect much of that to change because I think Jack Del Rio is a phenomenal. Obviously, with playing against him in the Raiders with the Broncos fans, because obviously this dude is an absolute stud. But anyway, I think we're going to play a little bit of bend, don't break. I think we're going to make the second-year guy actually slice and dice us the whole way down. I hope we don't let any big plays like you were talking about with Jalen Guyton getting free. But we did it a lot last year, and I don't expect it to change. I think our guys are going to play far off. We played it like 7 yards off in the Jack Del Rio defense, and I think we're going to force your guy, Justin Herbert, to, first of all, your offensive line to stop our front 4. I don't think we're going to blitz a whole bunch. We may send 5 every once in a while, but our front 4 is going to have to get to you guys, and I think we're going to have to. Your guys are going to have to walk it down the field, which is very possible. We'll see. Maybe that changes if Justin Herbert does show that he's going to continue to be a stud, but I think that's our game plan. We'll see. Yeah. All right, Yuki asked, where do you rank your wide receiver core?
As in like the Chargers or the Washington?
I'm assuming he's talking about the Chargers.
Or just both of us, I guess, how we rank them. But
yeah, that's true. We could both do that. That's fine.
No, it's a good question. Brandon Staley's come out many times and said this is, and he's the coach of his team, so obviously he's going to hype them up, but he said this is the most talented wide receiver room he's ever been a part of, which is saying something. Being with the Rams last year, I think have a very talented room as well. This year, they've obviously beefed it up even more. But when you have a Keenan Allen, who I think is a top 5 receiver, a Mike Williams who has the ability to be very good. He hasn't really had that breakout year yet. I know he had a 1,000-yard season 2 years ago, but hasn't truly lived up to that 7th-round pick. But it's still, a mismatch problem and a guy that can go up and get it. And then you add Josh Palmer, who I mentioned, who I think is going to be a phenomenal young receiver in this league. And then a Jalen Guyton, who's your burner and a guy that can just go and deep the ball. So you have a receiver that can do everything at every level. So, if I'm looking at the AFC West, who I think outside of the Raiders has very good receiving rooms. The Broncos have very deep receiving room. Obviously the Chiefs, we know, but depending how you define Travis Kelce, because after Tyreek Hill, they don't have a ton of talent at receiver after that. But I would put the Chargers above the Chiefs when it comes strictly to receivers, and then pretty on par with the Broncos, maybe above them just because of Keenan Allen. I think he pushes him. But I would put them in top 10 in the league. I mean, if I'm trying to think off the top of my head of each receiving room, and it helps when you have a top 5 guy, but just like I mentioned, what each guy can do at different levels gives them so much versatility. And in this new offense, what they want to do, I think it gives them a lot of ability to do a lot of cool things and not be, hamstrung by abilities of certain guys, because everyone can do a little different things. So I guess simple answer, Gridiron Yuki, I would say top 10.
Yeah, I'm going to be real right now. I think we have some potential in here, but I think we're barely maybe top 25, honestly, if we're going into this season. De'Ami Brown's a rookie. I think Curtis Samuel's a great guy that you could use anywhere and everywhere. It could be out of the backfield, slot, outside. That's great. I think Terry, as I said, I think he could show to be a top 5 receiver. But outside of Terry, I think we have some, and of course, Curtis Samuel right now is hurt. On top of that, I'm not a huge Cam Sims fan. Honestly, I know he had a great game against the Bucks. He had that phenomenal catch against the Steelers, the one-hander. But he's huge. He's 6'5", not a speedster, but I think he's more of a body catcher than anything. So I think we're barely top 25 right now, if we're being real. I bet some people may even have us lower than that, to be honest, because the De'Ami Brown, I think he has a lot of potential. I love that kid out of North Carolina. He's another 4'4" guy. I don't think he had a single drop. And when it was a contested pass, I think he had caught all the contested 50-50 balls. So, but right now, I think if I'm being realistic, top 25-ish, but I think we could obviously go out the door. I think we have a lot of potential, but that's all it is right now. It's just potential. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's fair because outside of McLaurin, it's like who's really proven. Obviously, Samuel's proven some things, but he's out for 5-6 weeks. So.
Exactly.
Right, who would? I don't know. I put you on the spot. Who would you put as the worst receiving core in the league?
The worst receiving core in the league. Houston's pretty bad.
Yeah.
They obviously no Hop and no Will Fuller, so Brandon Cooks is out there. So I would say they're pretty bad. I'm not high on Devontae Smith, so I think the Eagles are pretty bad. Even though they have 2 first-round picks of the last 2 years, I don't think they hit on their picks. I think both picks are not very good. Obviously Devontae Smith went nuts in college, but he's 175 pounds or 170 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
He's going to get pushed around in the league. It's not going to be as easy. And I don't know what he ended up running, like 4.4 or something like that?
Yeah.
I don't think he has enough speed to make up for that size. He's not like Darren Sproles like you guys had or the Chargers had in the past, where it's like you're super small, but you run like sub 4.3 speed, so that helps. So I think the Eagles are pretty bad. And then, of course, the Patriots are still bad. There's my bottom 3, I think, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can't think of. Yeah, I think that would agree with you there. So well done.
There you go. I took them all. So you couldn't answer.
Yeah, no. I didn't need to. I was just curious. Yeah.
Jets. Where would you rank the Jets? Jets, I guess, are probably
Jets have some talent, though. I mean, Jamison Crowder flashes. Denzel Mims. We'll see what he can do. If he actually, with a new offensive coordinator,
Corey Davis,
who
I would rank us above the Jets, I think. So I think the Jets are probably pretty bad. If we rank them, they're probably down there, outside the top 25, probably.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's probably a good one, Yuki.
Yeah.
Raiders receiving core is awful. Oh, that's true. Who do they even have?
Oh, they are awful. Yeah,
I mean, if
Henry Ruggs is your number 1, that's a problem.
They might be the worst.
They literally have Ruggs and what's his name? Guy from Clemson. That scored the national championship game to win it. Why am I drawing
this year?
No,
Powell,
like 3 years ago or
3 years ago. Oh, I don't even remember.
He was like the super senior white dude.
Renfro?
Yeah, Hunter Renfro.
Renfro. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and then I think they also have Nelson Aguilar, and that's it. So Darren Waller's basically their receiving core.
It's Staley that is your offensive play caller, right?
No, it's Joe Lombardi.
Okay, Joe Lombardi's going to be the caller. Anonymous asked that question.
Yeah.
Well, there you
Joe
go. Good
Lombardi,
question. I didn't know it.
Former Saints quarterback coach. So.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Staley is freaking defensive player. I still, for some reason in my head, I thought I read something where it's like, this is your first defensive-minded head coach in like over a decade or something like that. But for some reason in my head, I have that reversed. But no, Staley's defense. Okay, that makes more sense. All right.
He played quarterback in college, so he knows offense. So that's why he's a great hire.
He knows it all.
Yeah.
But head coaching, it's not so much about what you do. It's how can you lead, right?
How can you manage,
Joe Gibbs, our old coach, knew nothing about defense. He basically he made no bones about it afterwards in interviews. He just basically looked at our defensive coordinators like, "Give me the ball back.
Yeah.
Please give me the ball back." Like he didn't. He said he had nothing to do with that defense. It was just hey, you get me the ball back, please.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we did that. All right, so I just got a couple more things. We're 50 minutes in, so yeah, we're right on time, roughly. So what is your record prediction for y'all and us? What do you have us going, and you guys going? I don't care which team you go first, but what is your record prediction for both teams?
Ooh. Okay. So I'll be honest, I haven't looked at Washington's full schedule, so I'll just be, but like I said, I think they will win the division, but I'll just be guessing on a record.
Well, just to let you know, we play all 4 of the championship contenders. So we have the Bills, we have the Chiefs, we have the Packers, and the Bucks. So that's fun. We have the Seahawks. We have, who else do we have? Which divisions do we have this year? I don't even remember. It'll come to me. Oh, we have the Falcons division. So we have the Saints, we have that whole division.
Saints,
and then
Falcons,
on the
Panthers.
AFC side, who do we have? Do we have the Chiefs? We have the Chiefs. We have you.
AFC West,
obviously.
okay.
Yeah. The West.
Okay.
So there's
okay.
our schedule, roughly.
Well, I'll start with the Chargers. I think this is a playoff team. I don't think they're winning the division. I think it's still the Chiefs' division to win. I think the Broncos and Chiefs, or the Broncos and Chargers, are like very neck and neck. Right now, I would give the edge to the Broncos just because they have coaching continuity. I think Brandon Staley is going to be phenomenal, but he's still a first-year head coach. There's going to be some growing pains. Talk about the offensive line. Obviously, I'd give the QB nod to the Chargers, but the Broncos defense, I think it's going to be like a top 3 defense, like everyone they added this offseason. So I think potentially the AFC West, we could see 3 teams go, which is crazy, but it could happen, especially with the 7th team now. That being said, I do have the Chargers going 10-7 or 9-8. I think they're a winning football team. I think they squeak in that 7th spot for the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. You have Justin Herbert behind center. You can make some noise. So I'll go, just so I pick a number, I'll go 10-7, squeak into the playoffs. For the Washington football team, you mentioned some of those tough opponents, but you do get to play the Giants, you do get to play the Eagles. So, I mean, those are basically 4 wins right there, I think, or they should be. It's division games, so any given Sunday, but they should be.
Daniel Jones is 4-0 against us. As bad as that is, he's
insane.
4-0. Yeah. I think he's won 5 games in his career, and 4 of them have come against us. Yeah.
Oh, you guys need to change that this year. You need to change that this year. Oh man, but record-wise. I mean, obviously, I'll toss this to you, but I'm curious because I really do think they're the best team in the NFC East. I know, I know Dallas has improved, and we saw them play pretty well last night against the Buccaneers. Should have won that game if not for a couple missed field goals. Right. But I just think this defense for Washington is better, and you can obviously speak much more highly on it than I can. And I think the addition of Fitzpatrick will be an upgrade from what we saw last year. Again, we'll see how long that lasts. But I wonder what wins this division. Does 10-7 win? I mean, last year, what was it? 7-9 won the division.
7-9, exactly.
So 9-8, does that win it this year? I mean, maybe 9-8 wins it. You're a winning record, winning football team. You get a home game again. Yep. So I'll go 9-8. 9-8.
Oh, that's funny because you literally picked both of my record predictions. So I've already made videos on both of these. But yeah, I have the Chargers going 10-7. I have you guys 3rd in the division. I had you guys 3rd in the division until the Broncos benched Drew Lock, and now I'm so mad at them, and I moved them down to 9-8. So now you have you at the second spot in the division behind the Chiefs. But I had the Broncos going 11-5. If I thought Drew Lock was going to explode, and I'm so excited about it. But I think Fangio's playing a little scared.
Yeah,
like he wants the game manager instead of this dude that he sees, and he played well in this preseason. It's not like he lost the job. I know Teddy, I think, technically had better stats. Technically, if you look at it, I know he had a little bit higher completion percentage, and he didn't look bad either. Teddy Bridgewater didn't look bad, but I think he's just a middle-of-the-road quarterback. I think Drew Lock had that potential to be a stud. But anyway, enough about the Broncos. So I had you guys at 10-7, and I also have us at 9-8, losing to the Giants the last week of the season to then have either the Giants or the Cowboys go into the playoffs. The middle of our schedule is just absolutely brutal. We have the Saints, we have the Seahawks, we have the Bucks. Bucks comes off our bye week, but they have a bye week as well, so that we don't even get the benefit of going. We have extra time. So we have the Bucks. I already said I think the Chiefs. We have the Seahawks, the Bills, week 3. Like, so that middle of the season. Now, like, I think the Broncos are still good. I think the Carolina Panthers can have an interesting team. I like what Matt Rule is building down there in Carolina. So it's a murderous row. And then it was funny because it's like our schedule. They were like making our schedule, and it's like they got to week 14 and was like, oh crap, I forgot all the division games, and we have 5 division games to end the year, literally.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
5 in 5 weeks.
5 in 5 weeks. We have the Eagles twice, the Cowboys twice, and the Giants to end. So it's literally, I think it's Cowboys, Eagles, Giants.
That's bizarre.
Is how we finished the season.
Someone messed up.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have the Giants week 2. So we have no division games for whatever that is. 11 weeks.
Usually the last 2 weeks are always division games, but not the last 5. So someone messed up there.
Yeah, they got to the end of the schedule. Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Like,
Forgot they got to play these guys twice.
Yeah, exactly. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, man, and to your point, our defense, I think, is phenomenal. The linebackers is what's going to hold it back from being an all-time defense. But if Jamin Davis grows up quick and Cole Holcomb becomes a great linebacker like I think he can, and John Bostic just doesn't mess it up, this is an all-timer defense, I think. Yeah. I really do. I think William Jackson is an absolute stud that we brought in. Landon Collins is looking a lot slimmer and faster, even after the Achilles injury. Like, I thought maybe that he was going to be done, but he's actually looking better than he did last year, to start last year. He came in out of shape, didn't look good. He got absolutely demolished. I don't know if you remember, Kyler Murray made him look silly. Lamar Jackson gave him the stiff arm. Like, Daniel Jones outran him in a 40. Like, Daniel Jones got loose and like outran him. Yeah, so it was bad for Landon Collins, but he's back and looking better. Cam Curl, the second year, he was an absolute stud last year. He got snubbed out of no rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year votes. I think. I think he had a better year than Jeremy Chin. If you put him up side by side, I think he had a better year. Obviously, Chase Young should have won it, but Cam Curl had an argument that he should have got some legitimate votes, so I think he's going to be a stud. This defense is going to be phenomenal. That being said, we're going against like all the great quarterbacks, all of them. Like last year, like all of them in the running, we're going against all of them. A-Rod, Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. Like, all of the great quarterbacks are coming through here. And then we swept Dallas last year, but they didn't have like any of their offense. They had the receivers, but their offensive line was decimated. Zeke was not himself last year. And then, of course, Dak Prescott, Andy Dalton's trash. So we got Dak Prescott now twice. So we have all of the great quarterbacks, and I think it's just going to be a tough up and down year. I think we're going to have some games where Ryan Fitzpatrick goes nuts. We have and then we have some games where Ryan Fitzpatrick goes nuts, and it's going to be bad, where some games are bad and some games are good. So it's going to be an up and down season like it was last year. I mean, we were 2-7, and I was just fuming on my show, just absolutely going off of how did we lose to the dang Giants twice? How is that possible that we lose to the
that still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, just bench everybody. Like, we're moving on. Like, just go for the high pick or so, And then of course we ended up going on a run and made the playoffs. That was fun. I'm glad we didn't pack it in.
Yeah.
All right. That was fun. And so the last thing is, of course, what's your prediction for this game? And what's the score? Who wins it?
So I've been really going back and forth. I recorded my show yesterday and put it out today, so obviously I had to talk about it. And I do believe score predictions are hard because I always try not to be homerish, but it's sometimes I think in LA right now we just have good football with the Rams and now this new reinvented Chargers team. I do believe if the Chargers are able to do and stick to their game plan and everything I laid out, which is not me just being a fan. Why? It's me. I've been at training camp. We've talked to the coaches. We've been in press conferences. So they've laid it out. This is what we want to do as a team. If they're able to establish the run, keep efficient plays on offense, limit big plays on defense, get after Fitzpatrick, force him to make turnovers, I do think they come out with a win, which is a good win because, like I said, I think this is a very good Washington football team. This is a playoff team, a division-winning team. And the Chargers, if they can get off this quick and early, that'd be impressive with this new coaching staff. Now, if they lose, it won't be the end of the world for the Chargers. They'll take things from it. But I just think if they're able to do what they expect to do and what we saw in training camp, they'll come out. It's gonna be a close, low-scoring game. We're not going to see, too many fireworks from the offense, but if they can just not turn the ball over and limit mistakes, and they'll come on top. So score prediction, I think I'll go with like 21-17. I think it's a close one, but I do think the Chargers come out on top.
Chargers pull it off for you. I have us taking it. I think first-year head coach, I know you're talking him up real big. You're selling me on him a little bit, honestly. As I said, I didn't know much about Staley.
We can do a whole show just talking Staley if you want.
That's fun. But no, I think that we did play our starters, so we're going to come in a little bit more prepared, quote unquote. But I think we pull this out 23-20. But I do think the magic number for y'all is 24. If you hit 24, I don't think we can get you. I don't think we can catch you if you hit 24. I just don't think we have the offense, especially with no Curtis Samuel. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't think is going to score more than 23, and I think that's where it stays. So I think your magic number is 24. If you get 24 at any point in this game, I think it's over. I think that's pretty much chalk it up, move on to the next game, 0-1. But no, I think we got it. I think we take and even something that you said I didn't think of, but I already talked about Chase Young. I think is going to be an absolute monster this year, and you're talking about how your offensive line is not meshing, so that even just goes even a little bit farther. I think that's going to help us out a lot. We're going to get some pressure on Herbert, and hopefully we. Just because how we got beat last year was because we played so far off. Literally, our defensive line was taken out of the game because the ball was out in two and a half seconds. Like we just didn't have the time to get to the quarterback every single play. Matt Stafford picked us apart. Tom Brady obviously picked us apart in the playoff game. We just couldn't get enough to get in there. But I do think we have a good enough secondary now that we should be able to cover your guys long enough, at least sometimes, maybe not completely shut down Keenan Allen, but at least sometimes to get enough pressure on Herbert. I think we pull it off 23-20. All right, well, that is what I got. I don't see any more questions. Thank you guys all for being here. It was fun. Thank you, Ryan, for being here. And go sub to the channel. Link is in the description for Ryan Dyrud. And as I said, they're trying to get to 1,000 subs this season. They're at right over 800 and something. So good luck, and I hope everything goes well.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Any final thoughts?
No, man. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for sticking out with me. I know we try to do this another day, so I'm glad we made it work on this beautiful Friday. So a lot of fun. You do great work, man. Keep it up and keep repping your team, and good luck on Sunday.
Awesome. You too. All right. Thanks, everybody. And until next time, see you.